19th of Adar II, Hemshech Samech Vav, page Kuf Nun Hey.
What's with Tanya Shimon? What's with him? This day is after day, we don't see him. What's his problem? He's sick?
Yeah.
So you gave all the details? You gave all the details? I didn't hear what you said.
I said it.
Huh?
Yeah.
Right, so we saw the Kabbalah, the two inyonim, which one was Penimius to the other, Hanoches Atzmusei, and Kabbalah Seo Malchusho Yomayim. And we saw that they were the two factors of Vedas HaShoiv, Davka B'Shoiv Lamato, the ability to overlook and forego the tremendous tainug of the Aliyah and the dveikis in the Sheresh of the Neshama, that's the Rotzei Mitzad HaEtzem, and we saw that even Rotzei can be in the Etzem and Neshama, like the union of tainug and Rotzen. But nonetheless, we saw that the ultimate tachlis Mitzad Atzem saying Sefer Davke the Inyan HaShoiv and the Adam over there where he puts himself aside Lagamre, and he's no longer in his own Rishus, he's no longer really in charge of his own Inyan, but he's completely devoted to the Rotzen of Atzem saying Sefer. Therefore he's able to go back into the Seder of Olam Hazeh, Davke Lamata, be makabel on himself the inyan from oil, terror, mitzvahs, and to do the mitzad the inyan of kavana ha'elyena, and that's the inyan from Kabbalah Seo, based on the inyan of Hanoches Atzmusei. That's where we are holding. We saw that the inyan from Klolos Bituloi, v'Hanochosei be'etzem elamitias Atzmusei tzei porochu. Arizeh poyo, בדרך ממילא בהרוצוי, שגם תקף הרוצוי יהיה על חופונים בהדרוגה, אוי בהספיילס והסקבלוס יסירו, כי אם באופן שיהיה שויב. And we referred once again to the Avishnikna Sula Pardes and the great singularity of Rabbi Kiva, that he was able to be Niknas Lapardes B'Sholim, V'Yotzav B'Sholim, because he was right from the very beginning going into the Rotzei and the Chukah of the Knisa Lapardes. He already had the Kabbalah Seo and the Hanoches Atzmusei to Atzmusei Seif, and therefore, despite the fact that he went into a Rotzei, and that was even Rotzei Hashem, that there should be a Rotzei, but he was able to cause in the Rotzei that it wouldn't be his pilus, his gabras, Yeseiro, too much, overdone, his pilus and taking of power in himself, and therefore he knew right from the beginning that the ultimate tachlis was to come back into Shoiv and Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shamayim after the inyan of the Rotzei. Therefore the Rotzei was proportionate, because he had right from the beginning the Emersa basis, which was the Hanoches Atzmusei, even when he went into the Pardes. He still had the other three partners with him in that whole inyan put down the Gemara Masechta Chagiga. So now we go further. V'yesh loimar shezeu al derech hamavua b'mokim macher hamoshel. So now we bring a moshel to the difference between Rotzei v'Shoiv in general, and to this whole concept of there being a Kabbalah Seo hidden inside the Rotzei. Mi beis minei sorim hayoshvim lifnei hamelech b'mishter v'suda shetrichim l'shmoyach. We have something here similar to the beginning of the Megillah, that there's a inyan from a suda with the melech makes, a mishter v'suda, which is the whole early part of the Megillah deals with such a image. So you've got the Sorim, the ministers of the king, that their task is to sit in front of the king, meaning that they're always accompanying him, and they are his advisors and his ministers for carrying out the different purposes and tasks of the kingdom. And so he decides to make a big suda and invite many guests. He makes a mishtah suda, so they have to be happy. The king wants that everybody be b'simcha. That's the whole idea. He wants to reveal himself and his riches and his power and his position in such a way that everybody will be happy and everybody will show their simcha in the simcha samela. So tzrichim liyesh b'simcha. Hine besorim hamukuravim hanikroim yoyatzai hamelech, or the sorim who are very close, that the king has made them very close, and therefore they're called not just his ministers but his advisors. Yoyatzai hamelech harei hasimcha b'hizkalos. Since they're close to the melech and they have a close, what you might call, personal kesher with the melech, and always elevating themselves towards him and helping him, etc., etc. And therefore the simcha by zeh is b'hizkalos. They feel the simcha of the Suda, they know the purpose of the Suda, and the intent is to bring simcha to all the Avdei HaMelech, all the subjects and the whole kingdom. So therefore they feel the simcha because they know that that's the aim and the purpose of the Suda, and therefore by them the simcha is b'hizkalos. Ubehelem, however, hidden inside them, but it's behelem, yesh bohem yiras hamelech. Because so they're only his yoyachim and his ministers. They're not mamish members of the royal family. So therefore, they feel also a certain awe for the king. But at a time like this, where he wants the simcha to be begolui, so then they reveal the simcha, because that's what the purpose and the kavanah of the melech is. At the same time, they have to have, in order to be, if you don't mind, not playing with things with us.
I was just putting a new lead inside my pencil.
No. That inside they have deep inside them, they feel the awe of the king and fear of him, because since they're afterwards, after all considerations, they're still his servants, and therefore they have to have yira just like all other servants. But by them, the ikar begolo is the simcha. Okay, that's what the purpose of the whole Suda is. Ashorim abuti mukuravim. However, the sorim that they're not so close to the melech, he doesn't take them in to be advisors and high people, but they're a lower type of sar, but they're more practical, and that's what the Rebbe says now. Rak oidim avidas hamelech. They're the sort of sorim that they're more concerned with doing the tasks of the king. L'chol asher yetze tafkidoi ala medina. To whatever should be the melech's orders and his arrangements and what he decides for the whole kingdom. So they're sorim, they're taka ministers. They don't do the actual work themselves. They pass it on to all the other subjects. But their in is a practical one to see that all the orders of the king are carried out in the actual functioning b'poil of the Medina. So therefore they're sorim bilti mukuravim. V'ilu the other sorim, they're close to the king and they give him advice. Hagam, he says that these bilti mukuravim, or these more what you might call in inverted commas simple servants, Hagam shesmechim gam came b'simchosei, they also feel a simcha in the simcha of the king, because that's what the whole purpose of the Suda was, and therefore they also share the king's simcha. Mikol mokim yizgaber etzlam hayira. But nonetheless, what gains the upper hand in their feelings, even at the moment, the simcha is the yira and the awe and the fear of the king. Because since they're not so close to him, mibchinas kiruv to him, they're more practical and what you might call simple servants, and therefore the aima and the fear and what you might call the overpowering awe of the king is more noticeable and more, how they call it, they live more with that, even at the moment when they know that the king wants them to be b'simcha, and they're supposed to feel the simcha. So therefore they feel the simcha, but the feeling and the emotion that gains the upper hand by them is the yira. We've got two types of sorry. One that the ikis by say the simcha, since they know the king made this for the purpose of simcha, and a hidden form of or a much less begoli type of simcha, and even at the moment of simcha, are more overcoming and powerful determining factor of awe for the king. So the Rebbe said that's a dogma for what we were just talking about. Or bedugma kozais yesh loy makan. We should suggest here. How does it fit in here with what we're talking? Shemachmas habitol sheyesh boy be'etzem mitad akaboloseo harize poel shegam his galas harotzoi shulahem imiyoy or shaloi rather than shulahem. I saw in the new print they suggested that maybe it should be shaloi, not shalahem. His galas harotzoi shaloi im hiyoishu b'teikiv harotzoi ubegilui davke mikal mokim ena b'pchinas his gabrus here. Yes, say it's not with an overpowering going out in form of a rotzoi that can't come back. So in Cain, what is kilo the dogma? We suggested the idea that there was a rotzei that had in itself a power of yira, which kept it in proportion, and that led eventually, anyway, from the greatness of the rotzei to the shoy. It's not gonna fall out or something. You don't have to keep prodding at it. Let's put down the kiss for your reason. You shouldn't prod and play with the beard. I said put down. It's certain that the reason said if you do that, then what happens is eventually little parts of it fall out or things like that. That's not kedai. Even though it's put down, and others find that sometimes when people learn, they pull at the beard. You want to say a svara or something. So it's put down. And that's also a Yiddish amida. To when they want to say something or something does this. And one of the inyanim b'zeh is that you catch on to the inyan harachamim, to madregas gavoyas, and that gives you a certain ability to clarify the purpose and the inner purpose of the Torah.
So which svara is the strongest svara?
I said put in svarim.
So which svara is the strongest svara? Arizal?
I can't hear you, myself.
I said which svara is the strongest svara?
If you say a svara, it's a svara.
Which svara is a stronger one, Arizal or the other saying?
Well, both are true. What the Arizal meant is that you shouldn't just play around with the beard. Okay. But if during the Yiddish from learning somebody chaps the beard, then that's a Yiddish amida. And we have to assume that when he does that, then he wouldn't pull out any hairs anyway. Dave should help him. There would be kamosh tzori. But it's brought down that you shouldn't just play around with the beard. Anyway, whatever. So the point that we made prior to the marshal was the governing power of the Kabbalah Seo within inside the Adam. But when he gets into the rotzoi, he makes sure that the rotzoi is in proportion and it won't go beyond a certain limit, and you'll be always able, and you'll have a certain proneness to come back into the shoy. So therefore the marshal is from those of Adim that even though they feel a tremendous simcha in Simcha Samelech, but what is really the determining power by them is the yira. So we have to say that's the dogma, that's the marshal, that it depends what is the real determining. How do they say in Yiddish? It depends. What's it their kvetch? What's the push? The words are deep inner Kabbalah Seo and a hanochas atzmusay, but that's a pneumius of Kabbalah Seo. That's able to pull within the rotzei that it remain within proportion and not become a isgabrus here. You say that. That's the marshal from these. So it follows from that that's more fitting to the tzad of the marshal which deals with the Eved Apostle. And that's what you remember when we sprung over to a later part in the Hemshech, in the time of El and Rosh Hashanah, we learned a whole thing about the Eved Apostle. I don't know if any of you guys were here then, or if you remember.
I think we also learned this Moshe early in the Maimer as well.
Yeah.
The Eved Apostle.
Well, we didn't have exactly this marshal, but we had something, bedima to it. Not exactly this marshal, but Al Chaponim we did deal much later in the Hemshech with the whole concept of the Eved Ne'eman and the Eved Poshut. So we see that the desirable Sorim, that they are able to have the Isgabus Hayira Etzlam, or they are more the simple servants. In other words, they're the ones who they're in it just to carry out and they wouldn't really see themselves capable or even dare to in any way offer him advice, or to be close to him. And it's well known. There's an old saying by the Hasidim that a korev can't be a chosid. That somebody who's a family or whatever, he can't really be a chosid. Because in order to be a chosid, you've got to be to a certain extent each poshet. You've got to sort of be, as it were, away from the Rebbe and devoted to him. Or if you feel that you're one of his family anyway, it's very anyway. Whatever that's worth is you can be mispointed in that. They used to say by the Chassid. However, these simple servants, they are governed by the Yira. The Yira is what really is working in there, and therefore they're able to be in a situation despite the opposite of Yira, which is Simcha. And when a person is simply stuck in a state of expression of the soul, going out, as you might say, the lack of Hagbara. When a person is besimcha, that's the whole tunur. It's a union of pritzes Haggadorim. And we have the famous expression brought down from the Rabbi Nishma Seiden in one of the famous Shem Sheikhim, that simcha poiretzes geder, that the union from simcha, that it breaks through all the limiting factors. Simcha poiretzes geder. So here we see that the simple servants are able to share the simcha, but they can't come to a full expression of going beyond all the gedolim, but that's emerson. Simcha gedolah, because there's a deep discipline of yira and bittul and awe to the melech which is working inside there. So therefore, it's interesting that the Ikar Dugma is from these avodim Peshutim, and that's what we see later, that the whole Hemshech Samech Vav develops an amazing picture of the Eved Poshut. But despite the fact that there are other avodim, for example, the Eved Ne'eman, that they have milas in Gilui over the Eved Poshut, over the ultimate, what you might call worker, and the ultimate Kabbalah Seilnik, and the ultimate one that actually gets the real Tachlis HaKavona of the Melech into action is the Eved Apostle. So here we see a dogma and a similarity to that whole concept. So therefore he said that since if we take it in the Nimshal, that the Odom, even though he's niknas into a rotzoi, since he's Ikar governing power, is the union of Kabbalah Seil, and the Pnimis of that, like we said, was Hanochas Atzmusei, that makes it that even in these Galas of the rotzoi, even though it may be a fully expressed rotzoi, and it may even be begiloi, it can never go beyond certain desirable points, because he's always there with his yira and his self-effacement, as you might call it. Okay, my Eved, where are we? Take for rotzoi. Okay, my Eved shemakabel alav oil ha'odei. So here we see that we move mamish now into another marshal almost. We spoke first of all about the marshal of the Sorim, then we were mafarish the Nimshal. Now we go back almost into a further development of the marshal. Eved shemakabel alav oil ha'odin, harei oil ha'odin munach alav tomid, shegam b'teich of simchosei, lo yave gvuloi, li'eis heipach, mirotzein ha'odin. So the Rebbe said the way our emissary Eved, what that's we see later, the Eved Poshut, his Indian is that he's been makabel on himself the oil of the oil betachlis. His whole in is bittul gomo mitzad kabbalas oil ha'odin to do everything which is a rotzen Odin in a way of putting himself aside. And therefore we say that the oil of the Odin is munach. It literally rests upon him, meaning that he's not there. Like we saw in the whole Piyur yesterday in the concept of Anochas Hatzmusay. Shagam b'toichev, if he will have a powerful emotional expression, like Simcha, the nature of which is to go out beyond Gevulim, nonetheless he won't go beyond a certain Gevul, because he's got on himself this thing, and he knows that if he goes beyond a certain Gvul, then even though there may be certain justifications for that, it's still Heipok Rotzana Odin, the ultimate purpose of the Odin. And that brings us back to the amazing marshal that we see in the passage of Shavua from the Bnei Aaron, that even though they had a very high purpose, and they were very high and elevated people, nonetheless, ultimately it was Heipok Mirotzana Ha'elim. And therefore, the Eved never lets that happen. He would never allow his entrance into an emotional expression, even if it be a very supportable emotion, even an emotion which may have to do in some way with the simchas of the Melech. But he would never go beyond a matzav which would bring him to lose the connection Barotzen Ha'od and Mamish. And therefore, he would never develop into a situation of Heipok Rotzen Ha'odai.
Okay, so it's this in a mashal we gave with the two sarim. It's the simcha that's the emes hakavana.
No. The simcha is not the emes hakavana. I mean, it is in a way because the Melech wants people to be besimcha.
Right.
Well, that's what we're going to say. If you just wait a second, then that will become clear. So therefore, he says umuvan. Well, this is to be understood. She'ein ze doime be'etzem le'inyan hanal. Or this mashal which we just brought of the sarim of the king and the eved, that's not mamish doime to the inyan which we're dealing with. Inyan hanal means our inyan, the inyan we're dealing with. Ki'im b'derech dugma lavad. It's only just a dugma. It's not really B'tachas hatiyuk, similar to the Indian we're talking about, for the reason that your question just aroused. Because over there, the simcha is really part of what the Melech really wants. He wants everybody to be simcha. So there are two different types of experience of the simcha. There's people that experience them more. There are others who, it's the deep Kabbalah Panima that they have. They're not maybe we can have a bit of fresh air. Everybody close everything. Is Mashenkin, those who have a certain yira and pachad of the Melech, those who have a certain yira and pachad, then they're able to, or they balance out the union of the simcha by this Kabbalah cell. So the Rebbe said it's not mamish betachas deal, because over there we're talking about a thing which is basically, the Rotzen HaMelech, which is the Inyan HaSimcha. We're only bringing a dogma for the certain people that even when there's a big deal going on, they have a deep, what you might call, disciplinary force within them, the Inyan of the Yira. But not that it's really bedoima to our Inyan here. Because here we're talking about a Inyan from Rotzen, which can ultimately not be the Rotzen of the Melech. Like we just said, it can be Heipok Rotzen HaMelech, like we saw in the dogma of the Bnei Aaron. So the whole concept is not really the same. And over here we're talking about the avodah of Aliyah, Klapei, the Melech, and then the Kabbalah Serah, the Melech Papoyah. And over there, really the Rotzen of the Melech is the Simcha. So, I mean, there's a slight disparagement between the two aims of the two inyanim which are concerned. And therefore the Rebbe says, it's not really bedimian at all. All he's saying is that the dogma is that you have inside a great emotional arousal and a great emotional which is connected somehow or another. With the union of a Melech, for example, you can have in that two types. You can have people that they get more, as it were, absorbed only in the emotional arousal, and then you have certain figures that they're held back by a deep inner discipline. So in our Moshe, that deep inner discipline is the Kabbalah Seil and the Hanochas Hatzmusay, the Gabi the Inyan of the Rotzai, which is Lav Davki, Bepnimi is the Kavanah of the Melech. The Inyan Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shemayim, Harizeh Mikoyach Atzmei Davke. And here we get back to we're now like summing up after all the inyanim that we've seen here, that and this is one of the big central themes in the whole of Samech Vav, that despite the fact that the mensch is b'yedei Hashem, and everything is b'yedei Shamayim, as one on the famous statement in the Gemara. And like we see all the arousals to Avodas Hashem all come Milmaila, they come to Aaron HaKohen, to Adlochas HaManoira, and all sorts of inyanim, Sarusa de Layela, v'chulu. Everything is really b'yedei Hashem, and all the arousals and the koiches that a mensch puts in to Avodas Hashem all come from the Eibishter B'emes. However, the ultimate tachlis is, and the ultimate purpose of understanding Avodas Hashem is to know Aliv, that everything, the final shleimus is where it's your avodah, not alidei aiseres nomaila. And where does that fit in? In what bracket does your koyach, bekoyach atzmocha, where does it fit in and where does it enter? So that's what we're now going to sum up. Well, that power of Kabbalah Seil, of taking on oneself the yoke, mikoyach the selflessness of Hanochas Atzmusei, well, that is the power and the effort of the mensch himself. For example, if we take how it is in the kingship here, Lamata, well, it's one on the famous statement of the Gemara in Masechet Brachos, that Malchusa Di'ara Ke'ein Malchusa Dero Kia, that the kingship down here is a mi'ain, how do you call it? It's a similarity and a revelation of how kingship is Lamela. In other words, we can judge all the inyanim in kingship here in this world, mitzad they can help us to understand and appreciate inyan from kingship Lamela, because they are a mi'ain, one from the Adar. And that was a famous complaint that the Chassidim said in recent generations, that there's no longer a real king to really appreciate the Moshe. You don't see kings anymore, so it's hard to really take the Moshe b'pashtas, v'chule. This is one on the whole Indian around that. However, suffice it to say that we can learn from Inyanim of how the whole Kabbalah HaMalchus and the whole setting up of Malchus works down here. From that we can understand how it is in both in Avodas Hashem and how it is in Pnimis HaInyanim L'Mayla. That's the Pshat Malchusa Di'ara. So if we look at Malchusa Di'ara, Harein in Kabbalah Seil, Hu Sha'om Mikablim Mi'atzmon Uyu Malchusay Umachtirim Oisay Lamelech Aleihem Alidei Zeh U Naso Melech Vahem Avodim Eilo. So the Rebbe said, what is the meaning from Malucha? First of all, you have a whole group of people, thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of mentioned, and they're a whole group of people, li'atzmo, they're separate people, li'atzmo. The Melech is an individual, he's not them, and they don't necessarily have any direct connection with him. How does it all of a sudden work that he becomes a king over them, and he decides all their lives, and he decrees what they're going to be doing? What the whole hashpah of Amelech is a tremendous hashpah, until the very livelihood and the very life of people becomes completely tolu in the Melech. So how does it work? What makes that a certain mensch becomes a Melech al kol ha'am? Mitamo, all of a sudden he's a Melech al kol ha'am. So the Rebbe said that works through the inyan, with the fact that they take upon themselves, they receive on themselves the oil malchusei. They come up to him and they say, listen here, and that's what's called the coronation. They say, here we are, we're all prepared to give ourselves away completely to you. We're mavatal all of our will and all of our inyanim. We're mishtachaveh to you, or whatever that involves in Kashmir. We're completely and utterly thrown down in our own selves, like Gabi, you and your will. And Machtirin, they say, they put on him a keser, and he becomes Melecha Lehem, and then they become Avodim. Well, an Eved is a person that is completely and utterly devoted. They become a whole nother Metzias. Yeah, they become a new material. They become avodim. I say they were just people. Now all of a sudden they become avodim le'ish hazeh, and not just stam, but avodim, bi'etzem, and completely devoted to him in a way that their whole Matthias is now totally in him. So how does that function? So the Rebbe said that's the concept of Kabbalah Sel Malchusha of Mayim, or that's a Kabbalah in the Moshel, but that's even from Kabbalah Malchus, that they devote themselves entirely in a way of giving away their whole Matthias, and Machtirim, or that expresses itself through the placing of a crown on his head. But they put the crown on him, not he takes the crown. Not he walks out and jams the crown on his head and says, listen to you guys, that anybody will do against my will. No, they put the crown on him. They are Machtir Demela, meaning that the whole inyan of that bittul, that they should become avodim, is with their will. It's with their choice and with their will. And with their, as you might say, with their koya. Or kamoi kain hu be'inin Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shomayim. That's the Kabbalah Sel of Amila. She'ein ze mitzad ha'gilui milmayla. That's not because the Eibishter makes a tremendous gilui on dimension, and therefore they say, oh yes, mitzad this unbelievable revelation of Elokus, we all become avodim to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But he said, Ki im asher nishomes Yisrael me'atzmon davke, precisely from their own selves, mekavlim aleihem oil malchusi yisborach, that they take upon themselves the Eibishter's malchus, liyos munochim ubetelim elo. Yeah, they are completely and utterly vegilate. Munochim means that they could laid out. Ubetelim, to him entirely, and that's the union of Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim on Rosh Hashanah, as is well known. Also mention that in a little bit of detail. V'yadua, the Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim hu bebechira v'rotzen davke. The whole union from Kabbalah Sel Malchus Shemayim is davke with the choice of the Adam and with his will. V'lochein davke Adam harishoin kibel alav oil malchusi yisborach. V'oma Hashem Molach. It was Adam HaRishon that made the first statement, Benegeh to Malchus. He said Hashem Molach. V'hainu shalidei bechira v'rotzen yeh b'chinas bittul shel hamayla mitam v'da. That Dafke through the union of bechira v'rotzen, you should be able to become a eved. What the union from an eved is a bittul hamayla mitam v'da. So kumish kosev b'mokim acher. So what does he mean, this whole union from Bechira Varotzen being the Pnimius of the Kabbalah Sel Malchus of the Eibishter? What's the union with there? So it's well known, the famous Shaila, why is it that the Eibishter is a Melech Davke of Yidden and of Bnei Adam? The Eibishter could be described as a Melech al Kol Ha'oret, even on the Behemoths and even on that the Eibush is a melech. Why is it that the Ikra Malchus is Tafki ala Odo? Because where you rule over in Yonim, not in a way that is with the will of those that you rule over, then that's not called Malucha. That's not called kingship. No, that's called Memshola. It's called
dictatorship.
Dictatorship. Yeah, dictatorship. Well, it's like, a forceful rule. Yeah, dictatorship. Forceful rule. It's very interesting that they call over here, in this place they call it the Memshala, which is indicatory that it's beginning to indicate just how much it's not Lafi Rotzen, Anoshim, and it's something that's being terribly forced upon them by any kind of mocking. It's not the place to go into the whole Arichas here in this particular, but that is B'Ashgocha Proteus Noirah, that the whole thing is called Memsholadach, not Malucha. But anyway, whatever, the inyan for Malucha is Dafki B'Rotzen Hamakabli. And therefore, that's why it is that the Ika Malucha can only be of Panei Odo. Like if we take a person in this world, let's say he had huge flocks of all sorts of behemoths and chayas from all the sugim that you can imagine. And he walked around, and whenever he made a sign, they would all act. And like you got with some of these shepherds, they bring thousands of flocks into one area, and they just do everything they tell them. Would you say that man's a melech ala chayas elu? You try to say he's a melech. He's not a melech. He's just a moshel. He's a balabas over the chayas. Because melech, the whole concept of melucha, is only al b'nei adam. That's why he's brought down and said it, because davki b'nei adam have the ability to take you b'rotzen. And once there's been a beetle of the rotzen to your rotzen, and they decided al yidei their choice, to receive you as a king, then you become a king. Otherwise, it's not chayt the whole meaning of kingship. But once you've done that, once there's been that bittul harotzen, then it becomes a kinyan atzmi adle sof or adle etzem kol inyonim. Once you've given away your rotzen, and it's your choice, you've chosen to do that, it causes a shinui otzem, and those people become avodim, because the whole yin of an eved is he gives away his rotzen to the odain. And so all the people that before were just independent entities, all of them are now avodim. And that's one of the reasons why it has to be dafka alidei on our odom, because our odom has seichel. And it's brought down in that even though seichel is not the ultimate determination of the man, like we see here, the ultimate bittul is dafke l'mayla mitam v'das. The amitis Kabbalah brings the bittul which is unlimited. It's beyond reasoning. It's beyond the rules of seichel. But nonetheless, dafke those that have seichel have bechira. All other creatures that don't have the inif and seichel don't have bechira amitias. Maybe they have certain traces, a certain inyan, but they don't have bechira amitias. Or whereas the inif and seichel, tafki hidden inside the seichel, and particularly in the chush hadas sheba seichel, well, that's where we have bechira. And like it's well known, the whole Biur and Tanya and Perek where the Alter Rebbe talks about the Odom in the middle of the Nefesh Abamis and the Nefesh Ali Elokis. It's not clear who is this Odom. Well, that's the Bechira. That's the Etzem Amitius Inyan of the Odom. The Dafki B'Seichel, what's called Seichel Enushi. Dafki in the, what we call the Nefesh HaSichliyas. Dafki taught the Koyach HaSeichel, and Dafki, that's the ability to choose. Davke al yedei ha'odom is the inyan from Bechira. Of kol sharia inyanim, I'm sorry, the inyan hamalucha, or kol sharia nivron, it's not shayt the inyan from Malucha.
Also by Goyim, with their Bechira, also by Goyim, with their Bechira, with their
well, you see, because there's Malucha, it's put down, it's funny, because there's Malucha by Yidden, therefore there's also a certain trace of it by Goyim. But in Hanami, there's also the ability, you see, Goyim also have a certain limited form of Bechira. They don't have Bechira like it is by Yidden. But it's one of the famous Indian Beneged to the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, that you demand of them and you command them, so they must have some sort of a Bechira. And there's a whole Indian from the Rebbe about that on numerous occasions. So they're able to use that trace of Bechira they have Beneged to their kingship. But the truth of the matter is that in some Inyonim by the Goyim, even their kings are a little bit like Memsholah. There's a certain trace of Memsholah there. The Emusa Inyan of Malucha is Dafke Bayidin, because Dafke Bayidin is the Amitis Inyan of Bechira. And so here we see that the Mensch uses his Bechira mitzad the Emusa Madrega of Seichel Shaboy. So you might say, well, the Goyim also have Seichel. So it's brought down that because of the Nefesh Elikis in a Yid, then his Seichel is another type of, it's a more delicate and elevated form of Seichel, due to the fact that it's influenced, whether he wants it or not, by the Seichel of his Nefesh Elikis. Therefore, says the Rebbe, it's a Peledikasah. Therefore, the Rebbe says that the whole union of taking on ourselves in the Nimshal, at the Malchus Shemayim of the Eibishter, and then he says that's not mitzvah that the Eibishter came and said, listen here I am, you guys, so here I am, I'm your Melech. So to a certain extent by Matan Torah it was a little bit like that. However, we find that it wasn't 100%, and we're just coming from Purim, what the Gemara says, that Ein Hanami by Matan Torah was a little bit not yet completely the Inif and Kabbalah Samalchus, or the Emes Kabbalah Malchus was Dafke Bezman Mordechai Esther. As the Gemara brings him a sect of Shabbos, the famous Arichas, in Siddur also. And therefore the union from Emerson Malchus Shamayim is not mitzad the Eibishter, that's Dafke mitzad the Nishomas that they take on themselves in an even from Betelim Elo. And there the Rebbe said that's Dafke B'Bechira. And that was the union that with all the Chayas and with all the Oifes and with all the Behemoths and all the union what the Eibishter occurred in the 6 days of the creation, nobody took on themselves the Melech of the Eibishter, the Malchus of the Eibishter until Adam HaRishon was created. And Dafke Berega, that Adam HaRishon was created, the first thing he did was he gathered around all the Chayas and all the Oifes and all the Behemoths, and he said, Boyo v'nel, and we stayed on Nishtacha v'nivrecha v'nichrio lifnei Hashem oiseinu, let's bow down and in front of the Eibishter, Almeika. Well, that was the union that's brought in Siddur, that he said on the Pasuk, Hashem Mola. He said to them, the Eibishter has ruled. In other words, that he poiled on all of them, but the Mamera, the union from Kabbalah HaMalchus, but they themselves couldn't have done it. It was only through him. But the very fact that he was mamshichet on all the Behemoths and the Oifes, well, that's a very interesting principle. That tends to indicate that maybe the Behemoths do have a peswas. They're able to be makabel the Malchus of the Eibishter, but Dafke through the man, Dafke alidei the mensch. And therefore, if you look carefully in Perikov Dalet, in Tanya, about the middle of the Perik, we talked about the Behemoths and the Chayas. If you start, I don't want to get involved now in a whole big beer in Perikov Dalet in Tanya, but if you look it up, then you'll see that there's a very clear hint, if you learn the Pshat carefully over there, a very clear hint on the part of the Alter Rebbe that there is a certain inyan in Behemoths, what they do take on themselves a bittul to the Eibishter, and it's not necessarily Begoli Etzlam, but Liosid it will be Begoli. And that's what they're going to change the Behemoths. That's the whole thing. God Zaivim Kevesh, when they're going to Arichas and Vidarayvad and the Rambam differ on that Begoli over the Rebbe says, really they don't, with the whole Arichas, Inyan was saying Kanamochim, to get involved in the whole big Arichas Habir in that particular inyan. Said the Rebbe, that's what Adam HaRishon. So because Adam HaRishon had the Amitius HaSeichel, and he had the inyan from Bechira, he was able to make that amazing fusion from being an independent being to an Eved, the Eibishter, and he did it for himself. And not only did he do it for the Behemoths, but who Atzmei Asa Zeli Atzmei, and therefore he was Poel B'chol Abriya. That was it. But he said Hashem Mola. He was Megala, the whole inyan of Melucha, and that was Alidei Bechira V'rotz. Dafke through choice, B'chinas HaBittul Shel HaMayla Mitam V'das, and that's a Pelidikein. Dafke was the emes of Seichel, and in that is hidden the emes of Bechira. There can be a Bechira ad kedikach that he goes out of the Gidrei HaSeichel. He chooses to go beyond the whole Gidrei HaSeichel, and he becomes a Eved. And that's a Dvar Pele. Thousands of people through their Koyach HaBechira they have. That's the Bechira Nivra, the choice of all the creatures of the world. They in from Seichel, and Dafke in that they have the ability to give themselves away and lose their whole identity to the inyan of a Melabas of Adam. Alachas Kama V'chama V'kal Shkem V'kal V'chema B'nai Shal Kal V'chema, that they should be able to give themselves away to the Yetzer Hakel, to the Eibishter. That's the inyan for Kabbalah Malchus Shomayim, and therefore that becomes a Maila Mitam V'das mitzad the emes inyan from a Maila Mitam V'das. If by a boss of Adam, Alachas Kama V'chama B'negeh to Elikus, and that was the Ike Gila Purim, Derech. That was the Ike, and that's the whole inyan, Chayav Inish, the Bisume Ad Lo Yoda, because that inyan from Ad Lo Yoda is the Lamayla Lagamri Mididavag, Pola of Seichel, Ad Lo Yoda, the inyan from that, after dort wo the Bechira is. You have to go beyond the whole inyan, and that was Dafke B'Purim, Yosef Mi'B'Matan Torah. So here we see this whole amazing concept that a change in the etzem gavra, as you might say, the etzem being of the mensch, alters alidei Kabbalah Sel, that he's no longer what he was before. He's now an eved the gavra to the melech, and he's an eved gomer to the Eibishter, b'tachlis hashleima. המאמר וזה עניין קבולת סeo מלכוס שמיים שמכתירים מויסוי יסבורך בבחינת מלכוס בבחינת מלך שעל ידי זה ממשיכים להיות בבחינת רוצן למלוכה ויהיה מלך. They cause in the king the desire for kingship and he becomes a king. המאמר that's עניין for מכתירים. What מכתירים is a keser. A keser is something למילה מהראש. Lamaila mi seichel, lamaila mi, it indicates the union for lamaila mi tamada. Through that beetle, through the union of Bechira, they give themselves away in such a way which is completely beyond limitation. Therefore, they're mamshik the keser on the melech, and he takes over, and he literally purchases through that all their lamaila mi seichel, and he becomes like a center of the whole giving and power invested in the lamaila mi seichel. Those are the union from the keser. However, you had to poil in the melech. It's brought down in Siddur Baricha that because the melech is such an elevated individual, then the rotzen to be a king is by him a tremendous, like you read it from his great, it's much more, in inverted commas, comfortable for a great person to be in his own great, not to be busy with a ganze in and of running the whole country and the whole arichas advarim, and therefore davke through that beetle to him, they awaken him, this whole rotzen lemalucha, they're mamshich in him begolui, the rotzen lemalucha, because brought down and considers that an emes, a person like a miller, he has deep inside a tremendous rotzen lemalucha. It's a very powerful rotzen lemaila mikol v'toinais, but it's not necessarily begolui. And he take the beetle of all the people to be avodim, well, that calls out in him a gilui from the hilem ha'atzmi of his nefesh of the inyan rotzen to be a melech. And therefore that's also a inyan which is be'etzem a melech, also l'mayla mitam ver. So we see that all these inyanim begin with a milas ha'odem being seich, and they all lead to a shinui otzum b'evin shel a mayla mitam v'das legamri. And that's dafki b'koyach ha'odem. Dafki, that's him, b'inyanai hu al samein. And so therefore said the Rebbe, that's the union of causing mamshichim liyos b'chinas rotzen l'malucha. That calls out in the king the desire to become a king, vayihi melech, and he becomes a king b'poel. So now says the Rebbe, v'vadai alidei gilu b'chinas ha'malucha, alidei zeh nasa b'chinas ha'yira v'ofachad. What's with yira v'ofachad? Alidei, once there's been a gilu of the koyach ha'malucha in the king, then everybody fears him and everybody has awe and pachad for him. That's also one of the necessities, because if there's not yira v'ofachad for the melech, then it'll be too, how much you call it, of an intimate, good, friendly type of relationship. And if I'm muzayin, the union from yira v'ofachad for the melech, so how does that fit in? So the Rebbe said, but that's also part of the whole Kabbalah Samalchus. Like we say on Rosh Hashanah, that's in one of the piyutim, and one of the things that we say on, like these poetic prayers that we say in the Chazoras Hashatz. It's brought down, u'moiracho aleihem, that your fear, your awe is on all of them, meaning not only the malachim but also the neshamas. Yeah, so he says, ala malachim la'mayla, that's referring to angels la'mayla, but that's a big chiddush because they don't really have bechira, but yet nonetheless there's nimshut to them a whole new inyan of gil elikus, so therefore they become botel, or k'moi kein hu b'nishamas lamata, the inyan from yira v'fachad, avozeu kasher nimshach ha'rotzen liyos melech. But that's only once he's already decided to become melech, and he's already declared that he is being melech, well then there's the pachad for him, because he's already become like the ruling personage. But how do we make that he should want to become a melech, and that he should enter the whole step of becoming the king over all the people? Yeah, so he said that is davke through the inyan of the Kabbalah Seil and Bechira Barotzen. Avozeu kasher nimshach harotzen liyos melech v'amshocha zu, that there should be the rotzen liyos melech hu al yidei Kabbalah Seil malchus, davke through the inyan from Kabbalah Seil malchus.
So okay, so if we were to not crown God king, or make God king,
yeah,
is that to say that he wouldn't be king?
That's right. He wouldn't be king. And then he would just live a life without any gilel kus. Everybody would just drain around.
The God.
He would have created you, but if you don't take on yourself his malchus every Rosh Hashanah, as brought down at citizens, the world just would run without any gilel kus. The world would run like all these mishkoyim that are called the government over here and all that. It would just run without any gilel. It would just be an absolute chaos. That's what in effect it is. If there's no Kabbalah or Malchus Shemayim, then it's chaos.
But that seems to say, God forbid, that God is not the Tivai, a Melech.
He's not a Melech unless you make him. That's what we're saying. That's exactly what we're saying. And that is the shlemus of the whole argument here. That's what's written all over in the Siddur. But Davki the Eibush is a Melech because we make him a Melech. If he wanted to rule over here, then it wouldn't be Malucha, it would be Memshala. And he can do that if he wants. He can just push the whole world around and make it whatever he wanted, but he doesn't want it that way. He wants it, we should do it our way. When I say we should not do it our way, we should do it his way, ali that we've been makabel on ourselves to do it. Because then it's shleimus amuvi. If nobody wants to do that, and everybody says we don't care one way or the other, so then you get what you got now. Toyova.
It's on an individual level? If on an individual, person by person level?
Every individual. You have to learn Perek Mem Aleph in Tanya. If you look towards the first little part of Perek Mem Aleph, then you'll see that the Alter Rebbe says that you have to be Mekabel Oil Malchusi, and he said that's each and every individual. Each person has to do that. You can't just say, oh yes, well everybody will be Mekabel and I'll join in, I'll just be part of it. No, everybody's got to make Kabbalahs. And it's put down in certain places that if one of us doesn't, then to a certain extent it's lacking in the perfection of the whole week. In other words, that the Eibster makes it dependent on each and every individual, even though it's a massive Klolos Dikazah. And so therefore that's what we say. The Mishnah says in Sanhedrin that Chayav Adam Loima B'Shvili Nivra Ha'olam. Some people say, oh, this is Kabbalah, for me the whole world was created. So the Alter Rebbe writes, look it up in Perek Mem Aleph. The Alter Rebbe writes exactly the opposite. You have to say, for me the whole thing was created, meaning it's all depending on me. That if I don't take the Rota, then who knows what's going to be. And that's a pshat b'shvili nivra ha'olam. And there's a famous Chiddush quip, the b'shvili, the word shvila means in a path. According to my path, according to my little pathway, my little shtikelach, that's what the Eibush is waiting for. B'shvili nivra ha'olam. And that could be backed up by a Maimon Chazal, by any kind of mokim. I want to try and finish at least something here. Edify. So comes along the Rebbe and he says that is the inyan of Kabbalah Tzalkumta, that it's all mitzad the Adam and it's all mitzad koyach atzmeinu, koyach ha'adam. So now the Rebbe goes back, wait a minute, was it koyach ha'adam? Is him came why by all Adams is it not like that? Like we just said by Goyim, it's not in the same madrega. So therefore the Rebbe said, Mikol machem tzarik loima, shezo mitzad ishkashus atzm nafshon bi'atmas ein tzayporachol. The way they didn't get the power, to just give everything away and just give themselves away absolutely to the Eibishter, the Kabbalah Sale, but Bechira, that they do it willingly, give away their whole being altogether, only to Rotzen Hashem. So that's also because they really come from Atmas Ein. And since the Etzem and Neshama really is Mushash in Atmas, therefore they have that ability. So it's not really their choice. So therefore, that's now the question. Tzarik Leimer Shizau Mitad Ishkashus Atzmum and Etzem Nafshom Be'atzmas Ein Tzeiporachim Telefisha Atzmas Sheba Atzmas Harihem Mukusharim Umiyuchadim Bamitas Atzmus Yisbarach, that in the Atmas of the Eibishter, Hari, they're tied up and they're even miyuchad, because they're completely united in the genuineness of his Atmas, blessed be he, ubeteilim b'chinas bittul atmi, and therefore since they come anyway from the Atmas, and therefore they're anyway batil b'chinas bittul atmi, they have no matzias of their own. Would you tell me that it's their bechira and their doing? L'zoish gam lamata harei mekablim aleim o malchus shomayim. Since they're bottled anyway, they're only part of him. They're all part of Atzma Saint Say. Yeah, therefore they're the ones that they take on themselves. Liyesh beteglim betachli. However, said the Rebbe, the teretz is, yeah, it looks like a kasher. We said, he said, that's very, very hidden inside them. It's so hidden, ad she'etzem inyan ha'kabbalah sel, hu b'koyach atzmei davka. Remember, here you see a famous case where Chassidus often does it. It dances on both. It dances on both the chasanas. In other words, mitzad echad, the Rebbe says, well, how have you got the ability to do that? They carry the whole creation, they give themselves away, and because that the Abish becomes a Mela, and they completely devoted, and Kabbalah, Hanochas, Atzmusam, and Bittel, and do it, absolute Bittel, or Tzeinei, V'chuliver. He said, that's because anyway they're really mushrat. You have to use the old expression like to chip off the old block, as we often said on different occasions, the famous quip, that they're like a piece of him. Yeah? So if they're like a piece of him, then that's why they have that ability to take on themselves the whole oil malchus and to be bottled to him completely. So the Rebbe said that's only in the form of like an asinas koyach. It's like a hidden, inward functioning power. It's like what I might call a hidden static electricity inside a yid. Sort of working and flashing and prompting him. It only prompts him. Ultimately speaking, it's his decision. Because that functions only Behele. And it's like the famous Rashi at the end of in Sefer Devarim, at the end of Pasha Nitzovim. Well, it's in the Abish says to Yidden, I've given him funny Chaim as a Teiv as a Moses as a Ra. I've given you good and life, I've given you the hypok, the opposite, chashon, this, yeah. Uvachatem b'chayim, I'm asking you to choose the Inim from Chayim. And choose the Inim from Chayim. So Rashi comes along, then Rashi brings the whole Moshe from a father, but he had really a beautiful, the fields, and that he wants to leave for his son, and it's going to be left to all members of the family, and he takes his son, and he takes him to the best part, and he said, listen, you choose this part, you say you want this part. So we see that really the father does it. He brings him out, he says, this is the best thing, I'm giving you I'm pushing you, you should say that you want that part. And everyone comes to us that the whole mashmos of the pocket loses itself. Here it's written that everyone put in front of you, you've got to choose what you're going to be doing. And comes along Rashi knows, it's just like the father, he takes it and choose this one. And that's exactly what the Rebbe means here, that it's already been done in a way. But you've got to do it. In other words, you've been shown, you've been prompted. There's a deep inner light that's showing you what to do. But you've got to do it. And if you didn't, then it's not going to be done. Just by the fact that you're mushish in the Atman. So, this is the beer in them Rashi, famous Rashi. And the Rebbe's got a whole beer, but even Kozer. Validei, Kabbalah Seo, Malchus Shomayim, Davki through the taking on yourself of the Malchus Shomayim, Alidei Zeh, Hu Avodo Amitiyas. That is the emissary, genuine Avodo begins Rotzoi, Voshoi, Vanal. That you'll have Rotzoi and you'll have Shoi. But your Rotzoi will be measured, how do you call it? Your Rotzoi will be in a certain limitation within itself. It will be the way it's really required to be. Kidiboi means in the right way. What does it mean? Levato kol tzeinai mifnei rotzen Hashem b'toirava mitzvahs. That is the Indian, giving yourself away completely to Torah mitzvahs, and that's this whole concept of Hanoch Atzmusay, and the whole union of Kabbalah Seo, the putting aside of the self and taking on himself, the oil of the Torah mitzvahs, Ukamoya Eved. Once again, we come back to the Moshe of the Eved, like we said that the whole Kabbalah Seo of the kingship changes the whole Matthias of an independent individual into an Eved, Shekibel alov, he took upon himself. It's his doing. He got himself, as you might say, into it. He entered the whole situation. Shekibel alov oil adoinoi, to serve him and to carry out his will. Oz alidei kabbalah zu na'aseh koyach v'chizik bi'atzmei lavidosei. So then he draws, as it were, on the koyach that's hidden inside mitzad his etzer. Once he's made the decision, he's given himself away, but b'chirosei, then he gets a taste of his chizuk from the fact that belavach he's really makusha b'zeh. Koyach v'chizik bi'atzmei lavidosei. Whatever the Eibishter will be goizer, and he will say. Meaning that not only just Torah mitzvahs as they are in the Torah Mitzvahs, but whatever the Eibishter will declare and will make clear that is his rotzen. Yeah, what it changes from generation to generation, different things become necessary, different things becomes more the emphasis, different things become more the general shlichus of Torah mitzvahs, etc. Etc. Adla Doirazeh, what the Eibishter is goizer oimer, that this is the rega aflahovi liyamoisa Mashiach b'poel mami. Therefore, all the inyanim have got to develop, and all the Kabbalah and all the inyanim have got to include that, or in somehow or another be involved around that. In kol asher yigzer oimer, anything the Eibishter will desire to decree and to say, because the emissary Indian of Kabbalah Seyul is that you're ready to do whatever the king sees to be Ika Inyan that he requires at that particular time. So it'll never change from Torah Mitzvahs. Or sometimes Torah Mitzvahs Atzmam therein becomes the development of a whole Shinui in the world, a whole Indian in the world, like we saw Purim. The whole Indian is to express that Yehudi, the Indian from Kol HaKoifa, Bavei Desora, Ikra Yehudi, Mordechai, Ha-Yehudi, the whole Indian from Mesilas Nefesh, and the Etzim Indian from to be a Yid, despite all, and the Indian of being Megala, Sosin, Oira V'Simcha, Sosin V'Yikar, the Indian from Torah, and the Indian from Yontev, Mila, Tfilah, but the other Inyanim, that those were Inyanim Ikarim Be'esaha Azman. So all those inyanim still remain ikarim. But now the ikar is in from his galus Melech HaMashiach, take it from Yad now and take it from Yad Mamish now. Because there's no more time for goofing around and playing around. Things are becoming more and more, but anyway we won't talk about negative things. We will only say that the world is awaiting its ultimate tachlis, as the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya Perek Lamed Vav, that the ultimate tachlis of the world is the Gilui, the Gilui Alakusha, B'Yamois HaMashiach, V'Tchiyas HaMeitzim. That is the Alter Rebbe. So what are we? Ask us the unbelievable Shaila, what are we still waiting for? Yeah, very nice. Oh, amen. So mention the last little, what you might call the last little piece. Yeah, good for you. The last little piece is Mir Hashem, hopefully together with Melech HaMashiach. We'll learn early next week. First thing. Okay, good guys. There we are.